right, welcome back to the Weird and Strong podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jeremy Grinsteiner. This week, or today rather, we've got the Biz Hippie herself, Scarlett Stanhope. She's going to be talking with us about all the things that make her weird in the world and all the ways that she shows up in unconventional ways and the things that she does. So let's kick it off. Welcome, Scarlett.
Thank you for having me. I have many strong and many weird things, so I'm really excited.
So how we've been starting things lately is I start everything off with a weird question. You prepared? You ready?
I'm so ready. Yeah.
All right. Does a quesadilla count as a grilled cheese sandwich?
No, it doesn't, because a quesadilla is its own thing.
Okay.
Right? You can't say that a grilled cheese is a quesadilla because it's not. A quesadilla is its own thing. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a grilled cheese. It could technically be classified as a grilled cheese, but it's not a grilled cheese. Well, okay. I guess you could look at it. I'm taking this very seriously. You could look at it this way. So if anyone's a tequila drinker, mezcal is a kind of tequila. Mm-hmm. Not all tequila is mezcal, but all mezcal is tequila.
Correct.
So I guess I could use the same logic on a quesadilla, even though I don't want to. It still applies to say all quesadillas are grilled cheeses, but not all grilled cheeses are quesadillas.
Very well said. Usually we have to get into the nitty gritty of what do you define a grilled cheese as? And then people start to work themselves into saying that it is.
Right. Even if I don't want to, it ends up being that way, unfortunately. Yeah.
A related note on this is that there is there's always the age old question is a hot dog a sandwich? All of those things, all these types of questions. Have you ever seen this thing? It's on GitHub. If you don't know what GitHub is, it's a place for people to put code repositories. But you can also share documents and things like that. And it can be collaborative between people. And one of the things that I found a few years ago is something called the soup salad sandwich continuum, where you can explain everything in the universe as a soup, a salad, or a sandwich.
Oh my gosh. I can't even begin to comprehend that.
So for example, if you take enough sandwiches and put it in a bowl, it becomes a salad.
Right. Oh man. Oh, I feel like I could go on a whole tangent about that. I'm afraid to even open that door.
Just to see what are soups that I didn't think were soups before?
Oh yeah. You know what my favorite soup is the 3-bean soup, which most people don't realize they're drinking a 3-bean soup. Which is a vanilla latte with, wait, what is it? Is it oat milk? Oat milk's not a bean.
Coffee's not a bean either.
Well, we say coffee bean.
Yeah, we do, but it's technically a berry.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But I wish there was on Starbucks' menu, it's like the 3-bean soup, and it's like a nice latte, a vanilla latte with oat milk. It's 3-bean soup. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun one too that I've seen of strict definitions of things like berries. Like strawberries aren't technically berries, right? But a banana is.
Yeah. Right. That's like tomato, fruit or vegetable.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, let's talk more about you. Less about food. And easy question: what makes you weird?
What makes me weird? I mean,
what types of unconventional, interesting things do you bring forward in your life, bring forward into the world?
Yeah, I feel like I could answer this question from so many different angles. My go-to and simplest to connect to weirdness would be my hippie lifestyle. And I have been stepping more and more into my hippie lifestyle for several years now. And so my most extreme that looks like is I have achieved washing my hair once a month. And when I wash my hair, I do it with my own homemade shampoo. So I literally have not touched generic shampoo in years. I make my own. I only wash it once a month, and I don't own a hairbrush. I haven't brushed my hair in years. So a lot of people find that really weird, but I'm over here in my like hippie care life.
Yeah, that's really cool. I having long hair myself, like I'm not to the month, but it is like week and a half. The hard part for me is if I don't comb it, it will lock up.
Yeah. Right. And everybody has different like hair textures too. So it really does depend. And it took me like 7 years to get to the month span. And, and when I first started, I had to use a lot of dry shampoo to make it to a week. Now I can do a month, no dry shampoo at all, which is, I mean, sometimes it like gets a little funky in there, but I'm also used to it. And it's fun because now I'm learning things. Like I just got to the month mark recently, and last month I was in Hawaii. And so I washed it right before Hawaii at the beginning of December. And in Hawaii, I'm like going into the ocean, and when you have like salt water in your hair and it just gets like so sticky and like
crunchy.
knotted, right? You're like, I don't know what to do with this. Like I have to wash it out. And I was like, what happens if I don't wash it? And you know what happened? It just went away. It like absorbed into it over time. And I was like, sweet. I just got like a really nice mineral long-term hair mask.
Yeah. Just with the temporary discomfort or temporary, like, what the hell's going on with my hair?
Yeah, that one was really funky, but I was able to ride through it. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I can ride through saltwater hair for a week, like I can conquer anything.
That's awesome. So we got hippie lifestyle and hair care. What else? What are some of the weird things that you bring into the world?
So the other things that I would say, which it's hard to necessarily define something as weird when you're also surrounded with it. If I'm over in like corporate America and I'm the only weird person, of course I'm going to feel weird. But if I'm surrounded by a bunch of hippie crazy people, I'm just like, whatever, I'm normal. Yeah. So what might seem weird to most of the world, but doesn't really seem weird to me at this point, is the way that I choose to really live my life. And so a lot of my upbringing was, I need to be the best high achiever. Like I have to be a corporate tycoon. I have to be in finance and accounting. I have to wear blazers. I have to get the most successful career position ever. And I'm going to achieve. And then I really took a full 180 and threw all that away and said, you know what? I'm just going to attend retreats and be a Reiki practitioner and a yoga instructor and a life coach. And to me, like that is my most aligned and abundant life. And so consistently choosing that aligned, abundant life, even when it's a little crazy, like last year I was doing ayahuasca in the jungles of Costa Rica, and my boyfriend was so freaked out. He was like, "You're doing what?" And to me, I'm just like, yeah, someone mentioned it, and I was like, heck yeah, I'll be there. And then I say yes, and I show up. So it's
just a casual experience, experience in Costa Rica, whatever.
The weird part is that I say yes to all of it.
And that's, again, just like you said, is that what some people would find weird. Like I, again, also find that to be quite normal. Right. Like the saying no to yourself or holding yourself back becomes the weird part. Or saying, like, we talk about this, the owner of my gym and I a lot, is like the idea of retirement kind of freaks us out. Like we don't understand it. They're like I'm going to say no to the thing that I really want to do. Like there's these ideas when you talk to like financial planners, like in the like investment world, of like, envision what you really want to do when you retire. Like, what's your dream life look like and all that. And I was like, how about we just do that now?
Right, exactly. Well, we could dig so deep into that, because that really is in alignment with the old model. And so for people listening who don't know my many facets, I'm also an abundance coach. So the topic of like money is a huge thing for me. And the old view of retirement very much fits into this old paradigm of I need to suffer and
Mm-hmm.
work for the whole first chunk of my life, for the majority of my life, doing a job that I hate because I need the money to survive. And then someday I'll get to retire and finally start living. But the thing is, we're not really living in that reality anymore, and we're transitioning away from that reality. So there's more weirdos like us who are saying, no, let's just live our best life now. And make my work part of the best life instead of being the thing that's the hurdle between my best life and where I am now.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have examples from your life, but I look for myself, I look at like my parents or my dad, especially, is that out of nowhere this year, he came out to tell everybody that the biggest dream that he had, or the thing that he wanted most since he was like a kid, was to have chickens or to like be a chicken farmer. And I was like, even my mom was scratching her head like, you didn't think to bring that up sooner? Like,
wow,
like you're 65, man. Like you could have told somebody a little sooner than that. But now that he's approaching retirement, he's like, oh, this is something that I would like to do. I'm starting to have more time. I'm starting to have the ability to care for them in the way that I'd like to. And it's like, well, that makes sense. And you can also say those things to people. Like you can express your dreams and wants and goals for yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, chickens are amazing. I want to have chickens too. I really hope for your dad's sake that he gets those chickens.
Oh no, yeah, I just got to see them a couple weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
He already has them.
Yeah. Thank goodness. Yeah. Well, what I've also found too is people who are in this older paradigm of, work and then retirement where it's very separate. And I've seen this with like both my grandparents, who one has retired and the other is coming up on retirement age. And it's like when you spend your whole life working and doing things that you don't really want to do, but you only do them because you have to, or you believe that you have to, then when you do hit retirement age, or when you do have free time and someone finally asks you what you want, you have no idea how to answer that question. You're like, I don't know. All of my time has always just been filled with doing what I was supposed to do. So I can't even comprehend or imagine putting myself first or putting my own needs first. And it just like brings up this whole new concept that they haven't even been allowed to consider. And it actually makes stepping into this retirement phase really challenging, because it's like scary to have all this free time.
Absolutely. I look back at a previous life of my own. I used to work for a local nonprofit managing like kind of event program coordination and our volunteers to run our thrift store that we had. It was like a fun generation for us. And primarily all of our volunteers were of retirement age. And the amount of them that were lost in that same phase, like you said, of like they would come in and they would almost create themselves a 9-to-5 job doing volunteer work because they don't know what else to do with themselves. And yes, it aligned with things and made them feel good because it was a mission that they believed in, things like that. And also like they created a job for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've also seen that with, family and other people that I know. And something that I have also seen and witnessed and experienced is, first of all, this doesn't only happen with people who are at retirement age. It happens with so many of us. And I've experienced it with so many of us. And it translates to time, energy, and money. Because as me and you have talked about before, like all of those things are connected. And what I've experienced is people, and many of us, who feel like we don't have enough time or we don't have enough money. Someone who's in a job that they don't like, and it's like, oh, I wish I had more time. I don't have enough time to do the things that I want to do. The secret seed fear is actually not rooted in not having enough. It's actually rooted in having too much. And the fear is, if I have too much time, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. So it's easier for me to convince myself that I don't have time and that I'm stuck in the path that I am in, and I'm stuck in the environment that I'm in, because the true fear is like having too much space, having too much freedom, and having to actually make choices and decisions for the life that you want to live. And it's giving yourself too much control, too much power, that you're not willing to accept that responsibility.
Yeah. I've seen some interesting things with this with my coaching, and I'm willing to bet that you also have some similar interesting interactions with people in this way, of when you get people who have been in that mindset of like head down, blinders on. I don't have enough, or I'm doing the thing to march towards this end goal of retirement or whatever it is. And when you ask them what they really want, or what they would do if they just had, $1 billion overnight, and how dumbfounded some people get. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah. And I can also relate to this very personally, because I have been in that exact position. I remember it was pretty early on in my personal growth journey, like right after my own personal rock bottom, because I've gone through all of this. I just got to cram it into a very early chunk of my life, and I'm very grateful for that. So I remember I was attending this really big conference or convention. It's called Dream Builder Live, put on by Mary Morrissey, who has been like in the personal growth industry for decades. She's an older woman. She's like been doing this when it was first getting up and running. And so there's like thousands of us in this big like conference room in a hotel. Everybody's like high-fiving and hugging. And I'm actually there with my mom and my stepdad, because my mom is also a coach, big into personal growth. So I've had a very positive influence having her in my life. And they brought me to LA to attend this conference, or this like live event. And something that Mary Morrissey practices is what she calls the time machine, where you envision your life 5 years into the future, but you do it with a partner. So you stand with a partner, you spin in a circle, and then you act like this is the first time you've seen this person in 5 years. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you again at this reunion. Tell me about your life. And you talk about your life with this person in the present tense of it's 5 years later. And I remember attending this event, and all of the prep leading up to my time machine exercise. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to talk about. I feel like I've never even once in my whole entire life considered what I want. Like, I have just been doing the correct thing and the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. And so I was like trying my best, like, okay, let me think about, and the timing was also a little bit weird for me, because I was like, or I guess it was 3 years into the future. I was like, 3 years into the future, like I'm just graduating college. Like I'm literally like like I don't know what my life's gonna look like, because it's
don't know
like,
what you don't know.
Right. Nothing has happened. Like I just graduated college. It's not, and so I'm doing it, and my partner's my mom. We do the timeline exercise, and I'm like talking, whatever, and I start saying something in like past tense or in present tense instead of past tense, and she corrects me, which you're supposed to do. You're supposed to say, oh, you're talking in present tense instead of past tense. And I just looked at her and I broke down crying. I was like, I cannot do this. Like, I am trying so hard and I can't even talk in the correct tense. And it was like this massive breakdown. And it was because even just opening up the door to explore what the possibilities are was so outside of my comfort zone and so outside of my norm. And it was like I had never, ever asked myself what I wanted, and had never allowed myself to consider what I wanted. And I have totally experienced that with clients, to be like, well, what do you really want? And people are like, what? Like, I didn't even know that was an option. So even it like just when you have a really small lens of the life that you're allowed to live, and someone asks you what you really want and to consider it when you haven't considered it, it really like blasts open your perspective and blasts open your comfort zone in a way that can be really intimidating if you've never experienced that before.
Absolutely can. For you, like going from that experience of breaking down in front of your mom in this conference, how long did it take, or what was that journey like for you to start to then to allow yourself to dream, to view yourself in a lens that isn't of what I should do or what I'm expected to do?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I know that attending that event was a really strong starting point for me in starting to open up my perspective to what was possible. And it still took me several years because I was still like clawing my way out of a really deep hole that I had dug myself in. So I had to like, get myself out of the hole, and then I was standing on flat ground. And then it was from there that I could start to accelerate upward. So on the one hand, it took a while, like it took me several years, maybe like 3 years. But then after that, at the same time, everything happened very quickly. And once I had done enough work on myself, clearing out the limitations, then it has now become one of the easiest things to know what I do want and the life that I do want to live. And the biggest thing has been practice, like discovering, okay, what do I want? Asking myself, knowing the answer to that question, and then having the courage and the trust in myself to say yes to that life and to those things. And I know that was really challenging for me in terms of my relationship to money. That's really where money came and played a huge role, to be saying yes to multiple $1,000 retreats and travel. And no, I'm not going to get a corporate job, Mom. I'm going to be a life coach. There's so many challenges wrapped up in that, but really the practice over several years, which started off very small and then has escalated to be like a superpower now.
That's fantastic and amazing. Do you find that you slip back into like older mindsets, or have you skated clear past all of that?
What a question. No, I'm perfect, and I never I never experienced negativity ever in my no. So life fluctuates, and I would say that the best analogy that I love to use to describe this is that everybody fluctuates up and down like a wave, but over time your baseline increases. So I have a very high baseline. It's easy for me to stay in a very positive state, in a very abundance-based mindset, and know that everything's going to be okay even through those fluctuations. But those fluctuations still happen. And I still experience my own scarcity, even though I'm an abundance coach, even though I do live my most aligned, abundant life, there's still my own money beliefs and my own like, oh shit, like I gotta actually pay for stuff. Like I actually have to live. I actually have to either sign clients or make money some other way. Like all of those things still exist, and they have provided some pretty low lows. But at the same time, at the core of myself, there's a part that knows it's all going to work out no matter what. And it's a lot easier for me to ride the ups and downs instead of letting those low points define the decisions that I make for myself. And that has, made the growth more exponential, even though the ups and downs still happen.
Absolutely. Do you ever find that, or have you ever looked at when you are, or when you've experienced one of those low points, whether you're coming out of it or you're in the middle of it, and you find yourself like, I've done this a couple of times. It's like you take a step back and you look back at like, well, if I had stayed on that path, what would have the lows actually have been like?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great perspective to take, because then you remind yourself of how far you've come. And I think that's a really valuable practice. I feel like what really helps me a lot as well in the lows is having like validation for why I might be experiencing the lows. And so, um, like, for example, I'm very into astrology. So if I'm having a particularly challenging week, I remind myself, like, this is just part of a cycle that's constantly changing and evolving. And right now, this planet's in this alignment. And not that that's like an excuse for the way that my life is, but recognizing it to say, and it will change. And in a week, I will feel different. And right now, I'm just here for a reason. Like, maybe I have some lessons to learn. Maybe there's something that needs to be cleared out. Maybe I need to make a shift and do something differently. And so, like, taking what I can from the experience that I'm in, and also remembering that it's finite and that it's going to change. And same with, I'm on the feminine clock. So I have my 28-day cycle. And so reconnecting with that and being like, well, all my hormones are basically at level 0. And that's going to be very different than in 2 weeks when all my hormones are over 100 on the charts. And so, like, having that additional validation for, oh, well, these are some of the reasons why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And it's okay. So what can I gain from where I am right now?
Totally. Yeah. Like, that's I really like how you phrased all of that. One of the ways that I look at it is when I find myself or like people I'm working with, we get so attached to an outcome or how we expect to be experiencing the day, like this expectation. And, whether it's astrology or any other practice that other people might have, is that these do remind us that, like, we really don't have all of the control that we think we do. There's external factors, and also, like, as much as I would love to be able to control every part of my body, I haven't put in the work to be able to control myself at a cellular level with my thoughts.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we, on the one hand, especially, being part of the Enlifted crew as well, it's like you have so much control and power over your life. And that's the foundational lesson that I have learned in my own experience and that I work with my clients, is like, you have way more control than you realize, instead of being in this victim mentality and letting life be in control of you and finding yourself in a place where you're like, how the hell did I wind up here? Like, this is not where I want to be. But at the same time, there's the polarity of, and you also have very little control at the same time, because things are going to happen around you. You can't control the weather. You can't, there are things you are not in control of. And so it's, how do you find this balance in the middle where you're so in control of everything that you can be in control of to the best of your abilities, and you're able to surrender control and ride the waves with grace, so that even where you don't have control, you're still in control of yourself and you're in control of the things that you can control.
I was just revisiting some Alan Watts talks earlier this week, and one of the things that reminded me of is he was talking about when we're all born, we're thrown off of a precipice or a cliff, and as we fall, that is our life, and as we hit the bottom, that's our death. And as we are falling, there's rocks and trees and pieces of land that are falling with us. And what we tend to do is we tend to cling to the things that are falling next to us as if they were like dry land, stable land, not realizing that it's falling too.
Right.
Yeah.
That's such a really That's a really good like visual explanation. I haven't heard that one, but I'm a huge Alan Watts fan, so I love that.
And like I was talking about this with somebody the other day too, of like when we get so used to the act of feeling like we're holding on to things, like if I don't hold on, I don't know what's on the other side. Again, that inability to dream for themselves because they've never done it is like, I'm holding on to this rope because I think it's going to save my life. In reality, it's disconnected, or like I'm just dragging it behind me. Like it's not actually connected to anything.
Right. But it's that security of having something to hold on to. And at the same time, so it's like, how can you release the need for false security? And at the same time, I could recognize how some false security can also be supportive because, I recognize my own security to like astrology. Some people believe in astrology, some people don't. I like to look at it as like, how is this serving me and how is supporting me? And what it is doing is it allows me the opportunity to provide grace and for myself and say, everything's okay. But at the same time, there can be a more like negative attachment to like, okay, well, astrology is dictating my life and I'm using it to provide all these excuses for why I'm not living the life I want to live or why I feel the way I feel. So it comes back to like, how can you really be in control of everything that you can be in control of and also release control around the things that you don't have control of? And I'm curious to know what you do and if there's any practices or things that you use to really find this balance between control and surrender.
Absolutely. Like for me, the biggest area of control that I find myself looking at or like clinging to is expectation or like engineering of outcome. Like having a tech background, like of course I want to engineer. I want to see I put this in, I get this out. And so for me, the more that I explored that, just from like a curiosity standpoint, rather than being attached to the outcome, or when I find myself attached to the outcome, it's a point for me to go, well, that's interesting. Why am I expecting this? Like I'm telling myself I'm not expecting something, and yet I'm still expecting it because I felt disappointed when whatever I was expecting didn't happen. So we use this in the lifting world a lot. I have this expectation that I'm going to lift X number of pounds. I should be strong enough to do it. I've put all the training in to lift that weight. I go to lift it, doesn't happen. A past version of myself, and many people that like I've worked with, I see it happen on the daily, on social media, in person, at meets, all of that, is that we get really upset. We put ourselves in this downward spiral because we thought we were like owed that outcome. And instead of looking at what did we actually gain from the process? So like I said, for me, it's the curiosity aspect of it, of looking at why am I expecting this? Was that truly what I was expecting? Why do I feel like I was owed that outcome? Things like that.
Yeah. And I can totally relate to the expectation because I had a lot of expectations, especially earlier on in my life, and having the attachment to those expectations only causes more suffering because either you don't get what you expected and you feel awful, or you do get it and you're just like, nah, whatever. Like, I'll take the next finish line point, please. Like, this checkpoint doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I thought it mattered to me so much, and then really I didn't really care about it. Yeah. Do you ever have you found yourself too of like that expectation or that arbitrary deadline type of behaviors too, of like, I need to do this by the time I'm 30 years old, otherwise I'm a failure?
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. And even what you were touching on of like digging deeper into the why behind it. Like that's the most valuable practice. And this gets really incorporated into the abundance and money coaching that I do, because your why is often, if not always, attached to your own worth and your own value that you see for yourself. So it's like, oh, I have to be making 6K or six figures in my business, because if I don't, then I'm a failure. And then it attached to this number or this result or these expectations is, well, I took this huge leap of faith on myself. I told my whole family to screw it and that I was going to make it happen and that they better believe in me because I know I can do it. And I take like this huge leap of faith and I trust myself and I believe in myself. And then if it doesn't happen, it's like, oh my gosh, like now I'm questioning my own sanity, my own self-worth, my trust in myself and my ability to make decisions, because am I just crazy to believe that this was going to happen and that I could do this? And so your worth can get really attached to your results. And when those results don't happen and those expectations don't happen the way you expect them to, then it becomes like a really self-deprecating cycle, and it eliminates your own value and your belief in yourself. And so really it's how can you maintain that value and that worth and that belief, even when things don't turn out the way you want them to or expect them to? And how can you know, like, I can still make this happen. I can be good enough, even if I don't necessarily see that right now. And that's definitely, I think, one of the biggest lessons that coaches have to learn, or entrepreneurs and people in this untraditional space of, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to, own my own business and prove that I can be a great coach or whatever, and am also deserving and worthy of receiving money and actually being able to sustain my life for doing this work. Like that's a really challenging and potent way to test your own value and belief and self-trust, is like stepping into this industry and doing this work.
Yeah, that reminds me of a quote, and I think I've probably said this a few more times on the podcast, and everybody's probably sick of hearing it already, but and I don't even remember who said it. I'm gonna have to find that out one of these days. Is if you're not getting what you want, it's two things likely at play: is that you either didn't want it enough, or you're trying to bargain for the price. So in the idea of the six figures, you could still do it. It's just that you were trying to do it in such a shortened timeline that it wasn't necessarily possible for you.
Right. Yep. And the wanting it enough is really interesting, because what that makes me think of is, the different parts work or voice dialogue work. And this is a really great approach where you look at the different parts of yourself and the idea that there are different selves living inside of us. And they all want to serve you and they all want to help you and support you in some way, but they all support you in different ways. And so on the one hand, there's this big, very clear part of us that wants to be successful and wants to, yes, make a big impact, and yes, like do this work, and yes, make money doing this work. And at the same time, there can be this other part of us that we could also completely not be aware of, that's really scared to be successful and really scared to make tons of money, because it's like, what happens when I have tons of money? Are people going to look at me differently? Is it going to ruin my relationship with my family and my friends? What if I become this super successful coach and then there's all these expectations put on me and I can't live up to them? And so that self might hold you back and say, you know what? We're actually not going to do that. I know you think you want that, but you don't. So I'm just going to be over here self-sabotaging in order to protect you from all those things that you really don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are very valuable tools, as I've experienced as well, is being able to look at what's actually at play underneath it. Like I look at it a lot of times too, of like, what does, what does my thinking mind believe versus like how and what I feel as well. Because like up here, it goes 1,000 words a minute all the time, constantly on a loop. And it's easy to distract away from what I actually feel and experience as well. And so if I'm disconnected, just like you said, if I'm feeling that fear and feeling that scarcity or not safe, I can let the intellect override it and explain things away, or vice versa, and get myself into a pickle either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it definitely comes back to that same why underneath as well. And so recognizing if there is this disconnect between different selves or different parts or head and heart, and recognizing like what is the disconnect, because maybe the head wants it because I have to make 6 figures in order to be successful and in order to prove that I meant to do this. Mm-hmm. When the reality is maybe the heart is like, you know what? I don't really need 6 figures to be happy. I really just want a simple, quiet life with chickens. And, like recognizing what's the why behind it, and like that motivation of why you do want these results or why you are attached to these results.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. We covered just a few of your many superpowers, which I would put forward as those are your strengths in the world. How else do you bring strength into your practice, into the world? How else are you strong?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I mean, I can really say that for myself, first off, I'm very strong in the fact that I have continued to say yes to the life that I really want to live, even though it has at some points been incredibly challenging. And I have had to have some very challenging conversations with friends and family and my partner to be like, I swear I'm going to be safe going to Costa Rica by myself, and like crying the day before my trip and being like, am I crazy? Like, why did I think that I could do this? And like being able to, even though it's hard, say at the end of the day, like, this is what my heart really wants. This is what my highest self really wants. And even if it might not make sense logically, or even if other people might not understand it, I'm going to continue to say yes to that. And I'm also going to do it in a way where I also feel safe and secure, and I'm taking care of my own needs for safety. And that definitely comes back to money work. How can you abundantly say yes to your best life and say yes to those investments? But how can you also do it in a way where you're not sacrificing your own security? And so that's really been a big strength personally for me, has been that really, really deep commitment to myself and this path. So that's one.
Yeah. That's awesome. Do you have more?
I definitely do have more. So that's like me and how I'm strong for myself, but how I'm also strong for the world is, I mean, first of all, doing that does bring a strength to the world, because it really shows other people that it's possible and can motivate and give them the strength to do that. And doing a lot of this work for myself also really empowers me to do it for others. And so because I've been going on this path for several years now, and have worked on my own growth for several years, and have been developing my own skills, now I get to bring this to my clients in a variety of ways. And I really get to support them and hold space for them and bring new perspectives to them. And that has been one of the greatest strengths that I've discovered, is my ability to commit to this work and say, yes, I am a coach. Yes, I am a leader. Yes, I am a healer, and allow myself to show up as that and show up in my leadership and hold that space for others, because that's how we change the world. And that's the most important thing to me, is changing and transforming the world. And so my commitment to that mission for me is strong, but is also strong and important for all the people that I work with in my abundance coaching, in my one-on-one coaching, in my Reiki sessions and pain relief sessions, in the ayahuasca ceremonies that I'm with people with, where I'm just like, come on, guys, we got this. It's going to be awesome. Like no fear at all. Yeah. So the way that I show up and heal, rooted in that commitment to this path.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Before we close up, what would you like to promote for yourself? What would you like to bring out to let the listeners know about what you bring into the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And my foundational coaching support is my program called Empowered Abundance, which is a really awesome program that really addresses your relationship to money and really relates to a lot about what we touched on today, which is like your self-worth and the different expectations you have on yourself. But it also combines these foundational money management techniques. And how do you actually manage your money in a way where you can feel safe and you can feel secure and you can say yes to the life that you want to live and do it in a way that feels most in alignment for you. So that's a really great foundational program that I'm so grateful to offer. And then I am starting to open one-on-one slots for just like transformational coaching. So if anyone's out there and really wants like next level, let's do this full life transformation, I have great one-on-one opportunities. And then if anybody's local, I have in-person Reiki and fascial release healing sessions. That's really potent for, you know, transforming your life and healing and taking whatever you need to bring yourself to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram. My handle is at the Biz Hippie. And that's also my website as well, is thebizhippie.com. So you can feel free to check that out for more information on Empowered Abundance. But, you know, reach out to me and DM me on Instagram because I love conversation. I love meeting people and I want to hear your feedback too, or what inspired you from listening to this conversation in this episode that we have just done right now.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much, Scarlett, for joining me today. We'll have all of the links in the show notes for those of you listening. Again, thank you, Scarlett, and thank you all for listening today. Until next time.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Yeah, until next time.